and the band members and Mr. Calloway now know that she was Mr. Calloway's daughter and Bud is his grandson. The outcome of the climax is Bud is fully accepted into the Calloway family and even into his grandfather's band. Bud knows that he must be patient until his newfound grandfather can come to terms with all that has happened in his life. Some of the themes in the story include: when God closes one door, he always opens another. The first and most important theme is when God closes one door, he always opens another. Bud learns this every time something eventful happens in his life and is followed by another path that leads him to what seems to be his destiny. Another theme involves the idea of fate or destiny. All the way through the story, events occur that keep Bud walking a continual path to Herman Calloway. For example, instead of being able to ride the rails with Bugs, he can't run fast enough to jump on a boxcar. This turned out to be good because Mr. Calloway is in Grand Rapids, not Chicago. People helping people. A third theme involves the idea of people helping people. In spite of abusive people like the Amoses, there are many examples in the story of people banding together to help each other to survive the Depression. It leaves the reader with a sense of hope for what Bud called human beings. The impact of segregation. A final theme is more subtle, but nonetheless important. The impact of segregation. Blacks like Bud were treated as second-class citizens during this time period. They couldn't own land or enter into contracts, and the Depression was even harder on them. However, out of this comes the sense that many African Americans become stronger for it. The mood is at times troubling and even dark, but for the most part, it is continuously hopeful and uplifting. This is the result of a young boy like Bud who won't allow society, adults, or even kids his own age to hold him back from achieving his goals. And that was the story Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. The next book, My Brother Sam is Dead. This is another Newbery Medal winner, and this book is by James Collier and Christopher Collier. My Brother Sam is Dead is a vivid realization of the Revolutionary War period. My Brother Sam is Dead is the story of a family being torn apart by war. They honor the rule of King George as a loyalist or fight for our independence as a rebel to the king's rule. The narrator of this story is Tim Meeker. During the course of the story, he watches the older and more experienced people around him and wonders which ideals he should take as his own. Tim is frightened of his father, who is a powerful, all-knowing force in the Meeker household. This fear is balanced and at times outweighed by Tim's adoration of his older brother Sam, who is everything Tim wants to grow up to be. Throughout the novel, Tim considers the opposing influences of his brother and father and chisels out a sensibility of his own. Tim is determined to prove himself to Sam in everything he does, whether with his cleverness in the face of the cowboys or his mature ability to run the tavern. Tim's desire to impress his brother and also forge himself in contrast to his role model pervades the novel. Tim's struggle to grow up during the war parallels the new nation's struggle to break free from the forces ruling it, while at the same time preserve some of its mother's country's more cherished and indispensable influence. Some of the main characters are Sam Meeker, who is Tim's older and only brother. Sam is admired by Tim for everything he does. Sam's stories of college glory are bedtime stories for Tim. Sam is aware of his attention and enjoys being the center of it. His decision to join the war is appropriate to his personality, since he is one who loves to compete, whether in college debates or in heated arguments with his equally fiery father. Sam also craves the glory of being part of something great and worthy of talk and admiration. He is full of advice and pride, acting with a casual ease that he knows Tim envies, ready for adventure and drama and not stopping to worry about the people who are at home worrying about him. Our next character, Father, also known as Life. Father is the older, wiser, more conservative force guiding Tim, and he always winds up arguing with Sam. Mr. Meeker experienced war in his younger years and had no interest in ever involving himself with it again. And although he opposes treason toward the British monarchy, he does not necessarily side with the loyalists. He simply pleads disinterest and goes on running his tavern, selling his goods, trading at Verplanks once a year, and not caring who eats his goods so long as he can make a living. Let's see. We talked about Sam. Now we're going to talk about in the story, Tim travels a significant distance away from his home territory for the first time when he goes on the trip with his father. This distance allows him to gain some perspective and appreciates his own life. While on his trip, he gets to see his cousins he hadn't seen before, who must sleep in crowded rooms and sometimes in the barn. And he feels grateful for having grown up in the tavern. My favorite chapter, which is chapter 9, examines the opposing influences of Sam and Father on Tim. While Father rides up ahead and Tim leads the cattle alone, he passes time by naming all the countries in the world, a game that reveals his thought process. Tim acknowledges to himself that if the rebels win the war, America will be a country, not a colony. Then, however, he thinks of his father's certainty that the rebels will lose, and so he discards America as a country. This thought process is typical, for Tim often thinks first of Sam's opinion and then of his father's. Yes, we talked about that. Yes, we did. Okay, and so like I said, My Brother Sam is one of my favorite books. And as you see, I was getting lost in all the details, but I don't want to give you too much information, because I want you to go out, get this book, read it, and find out much more, and trust me, it'll be worth every minute of it. Especially the 14th chapter, which I didn't even go into because that's our little secret. And our last book, A Wrinkle in Time. And this is by Madeline Ellingle. Okay? And this also is a Newbery Award winner. Alright, A Wrinkle in Time, which is the winner of a Newbery Medal in 1963. This is a story of the adventures in space and time of Meg, Charles Wallace, and Calvin O'Keefe, which is an athlete student and one of the most popular boys in high school. They all are in search of Meg's father, a scientist who disappeared while engaged in secret work for the government on the Tesseract problem. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because this book was so good. We're talking about space, we're talking about secrets, we're talking about a group of young adults on their own in search of someone's father. A lot of action, a lot of things happen. So I want you to go back, go to your libraries, check these books out. My Brother Sam is Dead, Bud Not Buddy, and A Wrinkle in Time. Enjoy!